Hi, I'm Dee, and this is Rhonda, and we are the Switchblade Sisters Social Club. And this is our first bit of bonus Patreon content.
Hi.
Why are you not doing an excited dance?
Oh, sorry. Because you know what? I didn't see that you did it because my internet's bad.
Oh, well, this is really exciting because we love our Patreons. We promised you every month a bit of bonus content. So it'll either be like extra episodes or ask me anythings or videos where we just get drunk and talk about crime. It'll be a whole range of things. So today I'm really excited because actually it's been a super busy month for us, hasn't it? We have gone to like a million different conferences and so forth that we wanted to just tell you about, really. Huh.
Do you know what? This month, we've had moments that I will never forget
They've been
that I've been
amazing.
replaying in my head.
I
Yeah.
know. So the three events that we want to talk about are the podcast show, CrimeCon, and
Yep.
yesterday I went to a MailChimp conference as well. So um, we just met so many interesting people. Ranta, you only joined me at CrimeCon, but it was honestly one of the best weekends of my life. Of
It
my
really
life.
was. Yeah. I mean, we'll get into it, but we had like once in a lifetime experiences.
Yeah. So first of all, I went to the podcast show at Islington at the Business Design Center, and I went there because not only do I obviously have my own podcast, hi everyone, but I also do a lot of work on other people's podcasts, as does my sister. You do a lot of the social media for different podcasts. I do a lot of the sort of production side and the producing side. So, but on top of that, I was really excited because Ashley Flowers from Crime Junkie was there, and we love her.
Ooh.
We know there's a little bit of controversy around her because she was a little bit naughty in terms of plagiarizing her work. And we always quote our sources here. And if we remember, we put them in the show notes as well. But she is one that like inspired us to get on and do this ourselves, isn't she? Really, for me
Yeah, for
anyway.
me it was Bailey Sarian and Ashley Flowers' podcast that I started listening to.
Yeah, same. I my first one was My Favorite Murder, which is like a classic, and I still listen to it. Then I think I got into Murder Most Irish, which I really recommend, and you also love now, don't you?
Yeah.
And I'm really excited. Maybe one of the bonus contents will be about this, but in September, my friend Isla and I, who we'll talk about more in a bit, um, we are going to see them at their live sold out show in Dublin. So I'm so
Oh,
excited
do you know what? They're one of the podcasts where I listen to it for them as much as I do for their
for the content.
storytelling.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah,
that
because
one
I
is the
I
best.
I want to know about them and I want to know
I
about their lives, you
know.
know?
They're adorable. They're hilarious. It's been the best thing I've listened to in terms of learning about the culture and the history of Ireland, North and
Mm,
South, because they give such good like social, political, economic context to their cases. So I really
yeah.
feel like I get an understanding of like what it's like to be a woman in Ireland through the ages and what the political situation was like, which obviously for us as Palestinians is quite fascinating because there's a lot of similarities, a lot of differences, but a lot of similarities, right? And yeah, just really excited about going to see them live because I think it'll be amazing. So
Yeah.
saw Ashley Flowers there. I can't remember the name of the award, but they gave her some kind of award for like trailblazer or something or other. Raphael Rowe, our love, was there.
Oh,
More on
yeah,
him in a bit.
can't wait to talk about him. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about him in a bit because I saw his talk at the podcast show, but then we have more to say about CrimeCon where
Mm-hmm.
he also was. Um, yeah, and just got a really, really interesting feel about what's happening in the world of podcasting, what's coming up, how to like monetize podcasts, what they expect. I mean, no surprise, I think video is going to play more and more of a role in podcasting. Podcast ads, the spend on podcast ads is increasing by 33% every year. and staying the same on other audio platforms like radio and stuff like that, which is just shows how big this whole podcasting thing is getting, right?
And I'm going to talk about something that somebody said on a panel at CrimeCon, where I actually didn't listen to that panel because I had to get back for the kids, but we'll go into more detail about that. But I remember you told me that one of the hosts of Twisted Britain, his name is Bob, he's a BBC cameraman. We'll tell you more about them.
Love you, Twisted Britain.
Yeah, great podcast. Check them out. You will like him. He said that the only difference between somebody who has a podcast and doesn't is that one person has pressed record. I thought that's so fucking true. It's accessible for everyone. Anyone can do it,
Really, really, they can. I mean,
and everyone's got a story. Everyone has a story. Everyone has lived experiences. Everyone has like professional experience.
And a perspective that's unique to you, because no one has your background, your upbringing, your experiences. So you can offer a unique perspective. And I guess that's time for a little plug on our How to Podcast course, our Podcast Pro course. So if you are interested in podcasting, just fucking do it. One of the people that I listened to talk yesterday has a really successful podcast, and it's him and his brother. So I was like, oh, siblings who podcast together. But he lives here in the UK, and his brother lives in New Zealand. And so they actually started off recording just in the car together, with one of them driving home from work and the other one driving to work. And they would record on their phone.
I love that concept, because Twisted Britain, the guys we met at CrimeCon, they record in a pub, and you don't need a professional setup. It actually made me realize you don't need a professional setup. But I love that concept of them recording while they're driving, because it's a good use of time.
Yeah. And it's probably quite a natural, authentic environment for them to just have the chit chat and stuff. So yeah,
I'm interested in their setup though, in their car. How do they do that?
I'm sure it's far more professional now. They sound like they are in the millionaire.
I would love to know. I'd love to know, because I can't even take or make a good phone call in the car through my car kit. So I would love to know how
we'll have to check it out. I mean, obviously good sound quality really helps, but to be honest, if your content is strong, people will overlook it. I always think about this podcast that I used to listen to called Gaza Guy. Really recommend it. Because the audio, sorry, Gaza Guy, shockingly terrible. But it's a guy living in Gaza, recording in his bedroom, I presume, whatever, giving you perspective of what everyday life is like in Gaza. Which, even as a Palestinian, we're from Jerusalem, and we live in the UK. We don't have that perspective. It was so interesting. So I forgive him his slightly shoddy audio setup. I know that I have higher standards with that because of all my editing and podcast producing and whatever, because the content is so strong, and I can't get that perspective from anywhere else. So,
and like you said, a perspective on something is enough reason to start a podcast. Having strong opinions is about something. It can be about your special interest, like us with true crime. It could be about your profession or your line of work. It doesn't need to be about your hobby. It can just be your perspectives on things. It can just be, sharing your expertise about work. It can be to market something. There's a million and one reasons why people start a podcast, and that can also evolve over time,
Yeah. Ours is obviously a true crime podcast, but we come at it from the point of view of two females, two people, two Palestinians, so from marginalized communities. We come at it with your background in teaching, so obviously you have a strong interest in
social justice in education.
My background in the charity and with a slightly sciencey background, my degrees were in sort of environmental sciences, which is why I get so fascinated by the DNA stuff and all the science, the forensic developments. That's my jam, right? Back to the podcast show. Also hung out with the Pod Bible people. Check them out as well. It's a mainly online magazine, but they do have a hard copy magazine, which they give out with the Sunday Times here every few months. I write for them occasionally. But they're just such a lovely group of people. They all have their own podcasts as well, which are fascinating. And they gave such an interesting talk on, again, how to build a community around your podcast. And that's the idea is to like have your niche, have your perspective, have your target audience, and be very strong on that. So it was really, really interesting to,
you know, the podcast world, I heard this before we joined forces and started this podcast, but the podcast world is so friendly.
oh,
And it's a community in itself, regardless of what your niche or your topic is. It's a community in itself. Podcasters want other podcasters to succeed in a way that I haven't seen in any other field, any other niche, any other industry.
yeah,
And the
even working in the
collaboration-
charity field is not
Yeah.
so supportive. It's so weird.
I've
And
never come across anything so collaborative, so supportive.
it's really, really freaking cute, isn't it?
Mhm.
And that we got really, that was the vibe of CrimeCon when we went.
Yeah.
So
You walk in and you have friends.
it
and
was
that's
it was
weird. Yeah.
instantly. I mean, it helps when you go to something like that, obviously, that everyone already knows they have a shared interest, right? So you already have
You cut out the small talk of what's your favorite color? What's your favorite
Yeah.
dinosaur?
I just want to show my nails that I had specially done for CrimeCon before they go away. So
And that's a fingerprint if you
That's a
can't make it out on
fingerprint.
camera.
it's not super clear, but I've got some crime tape. Yeah. So big shout out again to Twisted Britain. They were
Oh.
hosting some of the panels and the quiz on the final night and everything. But
Two
honestly,
of the loveliest people. And you know what? Their hosts are called Bob and Ali. They're from Scotland. And I joined a little bit late on the Saturday. It was a 2-day conference. I joined a little bit late on the Saturday.
we'd already adopted Ali because
Yeah, and so when I got there and met up with Dee and our friend Isla, who is opening a bookstore called Criminally Good Books in York. Check them out. They're on Instagram already, Criminally Good Books York. He just came over and gave me a big hug. You know, never met the guy, but love him. So
He's
sweet.
so
He was
adorable.
one of like the highlights.
yeah, for sure. And I genuinely miss them.
So do I.
I
So do
miss them. I like it. It's a physical pain how much I miss Ali.
Do you know, I never have FOMO. I have like the opposite. JOMO or JOYMO, like joy of missing out. It's my favorite thing is to be able to stay home and not have to go do stuff. But I couldn't come for the second day because I had to be with the kids because it was on the weekend, and spending 2 whole days of the weekend away from them is a bit hard for them to deal with, and me. So I had such FOMO on the Sunday because Dee was there with Isla living it up. And
so, you know, Rhonda does our social media. So I was sending her all pictures and everything. And every time I'd send her a new picture, she'd be like, you motherfuckers.
oh,
like, sorry.
Oh, I called you fucking whores and all sorts.
Oh my God. The amount of abuse.
Because I was back home having to post the reels of you guys having fun. So there was some real-time content coming out on our account that day because I wasn't there. I was at home just creating the content with resentment.
Another highlight of that conference was that we finally met in person.
Oh,
The Colin Sutton.
fucking rock star that is Colin Sutton. And you know what surprises me about that guy? It doesn't surprise me because he's such a lovely guy and we know that
He's
already.
exactly how we expected him to be.
Yeah,
But
and-
even more adorable.
And he is like another former Scotland Yard murder squad detective who we established contact with through CrimeCon, who we will be doing an episode with. His name is Stephen Keogh. He's got a book coming out. We will talk about that in our bonus episode. He described Colin Sutton as the rock star of the true crime world, and it's so fucking true. There's not one person who's got a bad word to say about Colin.
But without any kind of ego.
No ego. He was hanging out with us.
He came,
being the rock
he
star
hung
that he
out
is,
with
as
us.
if we weren't complete plebs. He was hanging out with us, just like.
He came to the pub with us after. He was late to their VIP dinner because he was having a drink with us in the pub.
Oh, he is just down to earth, decent to the core, and just so
And
cute
I
and
honestly
lovely.
don't know how he's done it because the things that man must have seen in his lifetime. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how he's
I remember
managed.
he talked about compartmentalizing, and he must
Yeah.
have a different definition of that to us when he talks about compartmentalizing.
Like it must be like fucking brick walls. Do you know what I mean?
Like a locked away vault that he's locking away all that bad shit so he can just enjoy his life when he's not working. Yeah.
Sorry,
ADHD.
roller derby. Yeah, sorry.
Dyspraxia, Bruce. The other thing I was gonna say, there's 2 moments that will live in my head for the rest of my life, and I've been replaying them over and over from CrimeCon. 2 moments. One was Raphael Rowe, who we'll talk about in a sec, and Colin Sutton did a live talk together, a live podcast episode. So we were in the room waiting. We were actually, funny story, we went to sit in the front row being the eager beavers we are.
And we got moved because
we
they
got
were
moved.
the VIP,
We're not the
VIP
VIPs.
row.
We got moved to the second row. But anyway.
Wait, first of all, we need to start by saying that both Isla and I, Isla, who's opening the bookshop in York, and one of my dearest friends, we were both wearing our Colin Sutton fan club t-shirts, and Rhonda was wearing Switchblade Sisters Social Club t-shirt. So we look like proper fucking fangirls.
Groupies. We were grouping away that whole weekend. And basically, so we were sat in the second row. Then in walks the rock star that is Colin Sutton. He sees us. He gets on stage. Then he sees us. He points at us. And then he wants to give us a hug. And everyone's looking like, who are these two bitches?
And we were just like, Colin!
They weren't looking at us like that because everyone's nice. But I couldn't believe we were the first people he came over to give a hug to. And I hugged that man and I did not let go.
We were like,
one of those hugs, you know, when you hug somebody and it's probably a few seconds too long for their comfort.
It was probably a few minutes too long, but he is too polite and nice.
Oh, and then third moment. I haven't talked about the other one, but this is the third moment. He had in his pocket of his blazer our sticker that we had sent him. Our sticker. He fucking put that on his blazer and he was wearing it the whole talk. And that photo is circulating the world now. Him wearing this.
More than that, I think that video is on Raphael Rowe's podcast. And he's wearing our fucking sticker.
I couldn't believe it. So that was moment number 2. So Colin,
what was moment number 1?
I haven't talked about it yet. Four. There's four moments that will live in my head. So the second moment, first moment. They're not in order. They're not
okay.
In order. Another moment.
Another moment.
So Raphael Rowe. Okay, so on the content creators floor, Raphael Rowe. So for our American viewers who don't know Raphael Rowe, don't know if you have this on Netflix in the US, but he's got a show that's amazing called World's Toughest Prisons, where he goes into literally
inside the world's toughest prisons. Yeah.
So he goes into prisons around the world, literally the world's worst ones. And he literally fucking stays there to see, he
stays like a week
to see what it's like from the inside.
It's so interesting because, first of all, we should say Raphael Rowe, when he was about 18, got committed for murder and burglaries and spent 12 years in prison before being acquitted and released.
He was wrongly accused, protested his innocence the entire time, came out finally, became like an investigative journalist, eventually started this he wasn't the host in the first season, but took over the Inside the Worst Prisons. He now has his own podcast called Second Chances. He's written a book called Notorious. He's fucking amazing. Check him out. But we have talked about him regularly. And we've talked about him since like the beginning of the season.
But it's so interesting because when he goes, since We Knew the Moon, we were talking about him.
Yeah, true. Before,
but we the thing with him is that because he has spent 12 years in prison, when he goes into these other prisons for that TV show, they've got like a level of respect for him. He manages to integrate in a way that someone else wouldn't be able to, because like he's been inside and there's something other prisoners kind of, I don't know if respect that is the right phrase, but you know what I mean? They acknowledge that, and he's not a total outsider. We talked about this with Brian, didn't we? On the Queer Criminology Pride special about that. What was
Epigenetic perspectives. He
is sort of from within that community.
Very interesting. And it reminds you a little bit of that film with
Prison Break.
Forrest Whitaker's in the film, and it's about a real experiment that happened where they put people in prison, and some had to be the inmates, some had to be
that's based on I haven't seen that film, but that's based on a real psychology experiment that actually happened. Zombardo.
That film, by the way, can't remember the fucking name, but Forrest Whitaker did it.
It was Zombardo who did this experiment, but it's terrifying.
That film was really haunting. It was like the experiment is about human behavior, obviously, and how incredible, but the film was really fucking haunting, and it reminds me of that kind of, to see the dynamics in prison. Very interesting. So the moment that will fucking stay with me for the rest of my life, and that I keep replaying in my head, was on the content creators floor, which is basically all the podcasters. Raphael Rowe just had to stand there. So he had his team there, but he's just like right there, like right next to us, standing meters away from us. Like, you get access to people like Raphael Rowe. So I was like, fuck. Because whenever I meet famous people, I just turn into giggly.
It's not all famous people. It's just the ones that we genuinely respect and love.
Yeah.
I turn into like, blah, blah, blah,
I know. You try to act cool.
I have diarrhea. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, exactly. You get verbal diarrhea. But yeah, so I was trying to act cool. Anyway, we went up to him, and I will never fucking forget this, Dee. We introduced ourselves, or we went up to say hi, told him, who we were, and he actually had fucking listened to an episode of our podcast. That was fucking floored me. He knew who the fuck we were. Well, he knew us as, he asked us, "Are you those two podcast girls?" And
we were like, "We'll take it.
And
we'll change our fucking name to that.
Those two podcast girls." He'd fucking listened to an episode, and he'd listened to the hybristophilia episode. I don't know how he came across it, but he did.
Well, I know how he came across it, because we talked about him and we tagged him in it.
Okay.
Do you remember? We talked about him in that episode about inside world worst prisons and stuff like that.
Yeah, because there was a case of that he covered in one of the episodes.
I'm sure he did.
And there was that really old
serial killer.
Officer. Yeah, really old
serial killer in Ukraine or something, who had married
Ukraine or Russia, and then he had this. He was really old, like in his 80s. He's died now.
Oh, that one creeped me out, because he was like cherchez la femme, and it's like, that means like chasing women. It doesn't mean chasing them, killing them, and eating them, which is what this guy did.
And children, and he had this 25-year-old wife that had met him after,
and they had a baby.
Yeah.
I think. Anyway, so but we tagged him, but like, obviously these people get tagged left, right, and center and all sorts of things. We didn't expect he would actually go off and listen.
He listened. He knew. He asked, "Are you those two podcast girls? I can't fucking get over it." And you know what? He smelled amazing.
He did smell good.
He did. I know what aftershave he wears, but I won't disclose it, because that's his signature scent. If you want to know, DM us.
All right,
I'll tell you. But he smelled amazing. He's a well-dressed man. He smells good.
He was super cute. Yeah,
I loved him. So that moment, oh God. So Colin Sutton hugging us, Colin Sutton wearing our sticker, Raphael Rowe
kind of knowing who we were.
Fuck, never get over that.
Another highlight, meeting the Blue Murder Club girls.
That's what he's going to get onto. So basically, we're on the content creators floor, and then we see the Blue Murder Club, whose podcast.
And so for memory, actually from memory, no one knows this yet because it's not come out, but they interviewed us to go on their podcast. So at some point we will be guests on their fucking amazing show. Check it out.
It's a good one. Again, if you like us, you'll love them. They're really good.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the moment was that we saw them, and the first time we ever met them in real life. And Lauren, one half of the Blue Murder Club, she waves, and I literally said,
"We were
like,
like,
waving at us?"
And then she ran up to give us a hug, and we were like, because we were that excited about meeting them.
She
we just
looked
didn't
excited
expect
to see
them.
it, but I couldn't believe, because I was like, "Are you?" Because I'm that person that's always waving at people thinking they're waving at me, and they're not. They're waving at the person behind me.
Oh, it was so good. So like, what we're going to say is, come to the next fucking CrimeCon.
Yes, exactly. I put up a post on our stories saying who the fuck's going to come with us, but you're all coming with us.
Yeah. There's
I don't care if you're in the States, you're coming with us.
Yeah. We're gonna work on getting an affiliate code, in which case you will get some money off a ticket. So watch this space. But it was so much fun. If you look at that poll,
do you know who else?
Do
you know who else?
What?
Sorry. One sec. LaDonna Humphrey was there as well. So for our US listeners, there were US podcasters there too.
Yeah, there was Generation Y, which I know is a big one. I haven't actually listened to them, but I might check them out. Scottish Murders.
Mm-hmm. Very cool people.
British Murders. We met the British Murders guy, Stuart, right?
Yeah.
Such a nice guy. I also wanted to mention some of the people that we listened to, because there was so many talks. I mean, there was like 4 different rooms with talks going on throughout the 2 days. There was so much information to be had, and it was like crime writers, forensic scientists, podcasters. It was like former police officers, current police officers, blah, 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 loads. I was really excited because in one of the episodes that's coming up, you quoted this guy, Dr. Richard Shepard, who's a forensic
Mhm.
pathologist,
Mhm.
and he was there. So I got to listen to one of his talks. There was an amazing poet called Mr. Melise who opened up the conference. And one of his lines for his poems, I wrote down, "Where there are villains, there are heroes."
Oh.
And I love that. I
Mm.
just love that. I'm just going through my notebook with my sticker.
Notebook's so old school. You got some traditional values, do with your pen and paper.
Right, we obviously saw a few talks with Colin Sutton. He really was like the headliner of the show.
Dawn.
And I met Paul Holes.
Deanna's list of loves gets longer.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Paul Holes is a former police officer who was the one that helped catch the Golden State Killer, who's a serial killer and rapist, prolific rapist and serial killer for decades. And he had just not been caught yet. And Paul Holes managed to catch him. Very recently, he was tried during COVID and everything. So, you know, very, very recently, they identified him and tried him, and he's now in jail. Thank fuck. But I went up to Paul Holes after the talk, and he's gorgeous, by the way. He's fucking gorgeous.
I know. I texted you saying you fancy him, don't you?
I didn't think I did. Like, I knew I loved him. I knew he was an attractive man. I didn't think I fancied him. Until...
But you did. You know,
turns out I do. So I go up to him after his talk and was like, "Great talk, blah, blah, blah. I just have to tell you, you probably get this all the time, but I have a bearded dragon named after you." And he was like, "Nope, never get that one." And I was like, "Do you want to see a picture?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to see a picture of the other Paul Holes." And I was like, funny story. His name is actually Captain Sam Holes, because my partner and I, we divided up the naming. So Paul got to pick my Paul, not Paul Holes, got to pick the dragon's first name, and I got to pick his surname. So I don't know why Paul picked Sam, but I picked Holes after Paul Holes. And because it's a lockdown dragon, and it was during the time of the case. And yeah. The reason why he's a captain is because he just had this air of authority about him. So he needed some kind of rank. Anyways, I showed Paul Holes the picture of my dragon, and he put his arm around me for a picture, and I was like, it was just amazing. It was amazing. We had a talk about this show that's on Sky or Now TV at the moment called Monster in the Morgue. I'll just tell you the lowlights of this case, because I don't think I can ever have the stomach to cover it. Was really excited about it, and I watched the documentary when I got home, and they had like the former police officers and family liaison who worked on the case, as well as the director who made this documentary. So it was such an amazing panel. But basically, there were 2 murders in Kent, in Tunbridge Wells, in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And they never found the person. It was traumatizing for the community, et cetera, the families, obviously. Decades later, DNA studies have developed so much so that they managed to identify who the murderer is, which is fantastic. So they go to arrest him in I think it was 2019 or 2020. They're searching his house when he's been arrested for these 2 murders, and they find hard drives with hundreds of photos. This guy was an electrician at the hospital. They find photos of him sexually abusing hundreds of people in the morgue.
No.
I think they came to the conclusion it was about 101 bodies that he had violated. And it was really interesting because this wasn't touched on in the documentary, but someone had asked about how they told the families and stuff, because, you know, because they were talking about how they had a massive debate. Do we even tell the families? Mm-hmm. Right? And they obviously decided they had to if it came out, at least because if it came out in the press, and it would during the court case and whatever, that the families involved needed to know. But they had that whole conversation or whatever. But they were saying it was like a massive operation telling the families, because they wanted everyone to be told at the same time. And we're talking like hundreds of people. Mm-hmm. I think they identified 80 of the bodies of the 101 that they realized that he'd interfered with. So it was about 100 people that they had to go and inform. So what they did was they got about 150 family liaison officers to come to their headquarters or somewhere at a specific location all together at the same time. None of those family liaison officers knew what they were coming for. So they arrive, they get told what's happened, which is horrifying. And then they had to disperse and tell all the family members that were still alive and so forth at the same time, so that they wouldn't find out from somewhere else. Just, you know, and they were saying like that in itself was like one of the biggest operations, just telling the families. But can you imagine, they arrest this murderer, they're on a high because they finally caught this murderer, and then they find that. And they were like, we're used to murder, we're used to violent crimes, we've never had to deal with that. And the most fucked up thing, which is like, I don't even know how to feel about it, is that, so basically his kink, and I don't even want to use that word because it's okay to have kinks, this is something else, but his perversion, we'll say, was actually the having sex with the dead body, and that's why he committed those 2 murders. It's not the murder that was what he wanted to do, it was the sex with the dead body.
I fucking want to know the backstory there.
So basically what that means is that the entire time he was sexually abusing dead bodies, he wasn't committing murders. So obviously that's not right. That's not right at all. But if he hadn't had access to those bodies, he might still be committing murders. And that's, do you know what I mean? That's a head fuck, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are you happy that he had access to the bodies? Because at least people didn't die. I mean,
so do you think he took that job because?
Yeah, because he took that job about 2 days, within 2 years or so of the last murders. So
because I was going to ask, why would it be just 2 murders? It's not unusual just to have 2 murders and then
exactly, and it's because he had access.
Yeah,
he had easy access. So it's fucked up. Like I said, I don't even know how to process that. Obviously, the ideal would have been that he was caught and he didn't have access to torment anyone, alive or dead.
Girl, I want to know what happened to him as a kid. That's what I want to fucking know. That's
so
what I want
that
to fucking
documentary, I think it's called the Murder in the Morgue, or The Mystery in the Morgue. Yeah, fucked up. Cool. So that's let's say enough for CrimeCon. It was amazing. Come with us next time.
Come with us. Come overseas.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to go to the one in Glasgow. I'm working on it because there's one in September in Glasgow, a 1-day smaller CrimeCon. But yeah, actually they've already got the dates, or
yeah, I saw them advertised, I think. Yeah,
for next year. So do save the date. More info to follow. And then yesterday, I went to the MailChimp conference. So I'm sure loads of you know what MailChimp is. You definitely receive emails from MailChimp, even, you know.
Do you know what? At first I was like, why the fuck are you going to an email marketing conference? Well, it was so much more than that, huh?
Yeah, because it was about marketing in general, which again,
I mean, we have a mailing list, but I don't know that I could hear about. I work in marketing, and I don't think I can hear about email marketing all day.
So it's general marketing conference, obviously with a specific slant on MailChimp and how awesome MailChimp is. And I do genuinely quite love MailChimp. Yeah. I use it for a lot of my clients as well as for us and so forth. So it was just a really interesting conference to go to regardless. But I was just laughing about it because I just came off the back of organizing a charity conference that went fucking amazingly well for one of the charities I work with, because I organize events. I've never had the budget of a corporate conference, and it must be like another level. I've always done events mainly for charities or nonprofits or whatever, so the budget is always limited, whereas this, it felt like it was fucking raining money. There was a nap. There were stamps you could collect for doing different things that meant that you got different free merch. There was free.
I mean, I was impressed by the free food and
free breakfast, free snacks all day, free lunch, and loads of different types of lunch stations: sushi, pizza, pasta, burgers. The tickets were 100, so it's not even that much for a corporate conference.
I mean, I would have eaten 100 pounds worth of food across a day.
I definitely, in the networking drinks, drank 100 pounds worth of the free martinis, espresso martinis, because I do feel quite rough today. But it was amazing. And then because it was like this corporate conference, they sprinkled stardust over. There was Louis motherfucking Theroux.
I love what I love most about Louis Theroux. What I find the most charming thing about him is his awkwardness.
Yeah,
his comedy timing. He creates awkwardness.
His facial expression. What the actual fuck facial expression
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
also what I love about him is, like comedy is often about timing. And he leaves just enough time between his responses to create a fucking awkwardness. He's great. If you love The Office, if you love Eugene Levy and that kind of humor, he's the real
Amazing.
life person.
Yeah.
Like,
But
like
he actually, because he's so funny and endearing, he makes a bunch of really hard topics very accessible. Because if you watch his TV series, like I don't know if you've seen the episode on Israel Palestine that he's done.
Yeah,
But I recommend
yeah.
it to so many people who ask me, like, oh, just summarize the whole thing for me. And it's like, I can't, because it starts in biblical times. Just go off, watch the Louis Theroux episode, come back.
Do you know what else? Do you know what else I find fascinating about his approach to presenting and interviewing? He reminds me of Ali G. Ali G from back in the day in the 90s. Ali G was Sacha, a real person is Sacha Baron Cohen. And he would interview people, but he would like play the fool. He'd have this character of Ali G, and he would play the fool, but he would ask fucking insightful questions, and he would trip people up acting the fool.
He would, both of them, I agree, they would highlight the ridiculousness of the situation or of what the people are saying, but in such a clever way.
Yes, and so Louis Theroux sort of has that tactic where sometimes he's quite happy to let them think he's the fool, while at the same time he's tripping them up, and they're fucking just exposing themselves, But
love him.
Yeah, and he's clever. He knows what he's doing.
He does, and he's a fucking genius. I got his book as well for free from MailChimp.
Oh, you got it for free. I was just gonna say
Through the Keyhole.
I was gonna say, actually, I just bought today Raphael Rhodes' book, which I should have got it on at CrimeCon because he was signing it, but today on his Instagram he was advertising signed copies. So I was like, yes, I want a signed copy.
Yeah, love him.
So, I will tell you how that book is. It's gonna be good, obviously.
I have it as well. I just haven't started reading it. But yeah, love him. So the MailChimp conference, Louis Theroux, love him. He was interviewing Martina Navratilova.
You know what? I was interested by that because she is on Real Housewives of Miami. Did you know? She's the wife.
It was so inspiring.
Of one of the cast.
We don't give a shit about tennis, the actual playing of the tennis, but obviously she's like hugely inspiring person. She's battled two
forms of cancer
at the same time.
Yeah,
she was talking about it. She's a fucking legend. So it was really, really cool to hear Louis Theroux interviewing her on stage, basically. Like to see the master at work in person. I felt so fucking honored. And then the host throughout the day, the MC, was Richard Ayoade.
Yeah.
Who I love.
Wasn't he
from the IT crowd? Moss from the IT crowd.
Yeah.
So that was the first moment I fell in love with him. He's also done this amazing series called Travel Man. He's another one who just like is awkward in such a funny, endearing way that gives all of us weirdos a little bit of hope. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was just a lovely day. Got to hang out with Sarita as well at Hey Sarita, because she came along as well. She does a lot of content creation and stuff. So
we have a bonus episode coming out with Sarita.
Yeah. Watch this space. We've got it's actually not a bonus episode, it's part of our regular series, but yeah. Oh, look what I'm wearing.
Oh, I love the vest.
Yeah, so that's really it. That's really it for this first bonus. The next one, oh my god. Can I tell you? I don't know if you realize, but what the next bonus episode is. Well, you and me are going to be having a chat like this, except I won't be here in Twickenham. I will be in New Orleans.
You motherfucker.
New Orleans.
I'm going to promo again. Do you know what? Every time he goes abroad, I'm just like, just take 1,000,000 videos so that I can just feel like I'm there.
And I will. So I'm going there.
I want to see pictures of your food. I want to see pictures of everything.
And you will. So I'm going there mainly for Essence Festival. I've got some writing gigs around Essence Festival. And just to enjoy fucking New Orleans.
I want you to go and I was watching a food show with Nadia. Is her name Nadia Hussein? I think she was on like MasterChef or something like that.
No, she was the winner of one of the Bake Off.
Okay, I didn't watch the show she was in, but I'll have her cookbook, and she's got a separate show of her own. And she went to New Orleans, and I want you to go and order a poor boy
A po' boy. I've had po' boy.
Boy! Yeah, I heard
I've had po'
different
boys before. They're
What is
basically-
it? It's a sandwich, right?
It's a sandwich, but yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if it's a special bread or whatever, but like yeah, I've had po' boys before.
Okay.
So
I want you to go and buy. I want you to
oh,
go
I
and
will
have
take
one.
you. I will take pictures. I will have a hurricane. I will have all of the
Okay,
alcohol, and it's gonna be manic. And I'll keep you posted. Follow our socials
And
if you
what
want to
did?
see
Is it gumbo?
gumbo, jambalaya.
Yeah, I want you to have all that
I will.
so I can live through you.
Yeah, I will have the vegetarian options as and when possible. All right, but Sarita loves seafood, so I will take pictures of
I
the
want
seafood
everything.
versions because
And I'll be here making the reels.
yeah. All right, well, so we will see you next time, our lovely
Mwah!
patrons on Patreon.
Mwah, mwah, mwah. Love you.
Bye.